Hi, I'm Dr. Jon Dabach, and today we're going to be talking about how to handle your husband's explosions. If you are married and your husband has a tendency to fly off the handle, he has these big emotional outbursts, you might be wondering if it's just started or even if it's 20 years into your relationship. How the heck do you deal with this? How do you get it to stop? How do you cope with the stress that it might cause, not just for you, but for your kids, for your neighbors, for your pets? When people scream and throw these tantrums, it is very difficult to deal with indeed. And so I wanted to give you some advice and how you can handle it and why this is happening. So let's first talk about why this is happening, because when you understand the underlying cause of an action, it's a lot easier to deal with it. The example I often use is if you see your kid throwing a tantrum, you very quickly can realize, especially if they're a young child, that the tantrum is due to the fact that they don't have the tools to emotionally regulate themselves. And so they're blowing something out of proportions. Now, from an adult perspective, there are things where you are warranted to scream and cry and kick and hit the wall, but they're few and far between. And even those things where we throw our adult version of a tantrum, which can be very scary, are usually best handled without the tantrum and with better tools. So know that it's a tantrum. That's the first tip, right? Know that your husband screaming and yelling and shouting is the grown-up version of a tantrum. And I've even had some women in my care who come to me without their husband, and we play a game where we kind of imagine their husband in a diaper with their pacifier in one hand and their little blanket in the other as they scream, and it makes them realize the severity of the situation doesn't really match what is really going on. It's kind of like the old trick of imagining everybody in their underwear if you're giving public speaking. I never understood why that would work, maybe just to diffuse the tension. But when you're looking at somebody screaming and shouting and you imagine them in a diaper, again, with a pacifier and a blanket in their hands, you really start realizing they are the ones that are immature. They are the ones that are struggling with something. So what do you do? Well, staying with that same analogy, what you would do for a toddler is often the same thing you should do for your spouse, which is stay calm. If someone goes louder, you get even calmer. You just sit there and you don't look in a very condescending tone. You don't look with a judgmental face. 90% of communication is nonverbal. So if someone's shouting and you give them this sarcastic, like, you just wait till you're finished and I will get mine in. If that's the face that you're projecting, it's going to egg them on more. But if someone's screaming and you look on in concern, but quiet and calmly, just looking at them like, oh my God, I'm listening to every word and making sure I soak it in, that tends to calm them down. Because keep in mind, the first reason that any of us scream is to get attention. So if you're screaming or if someone's screaming at you and you show them that they have your attention, then the meaning behind the screaming suddenly takes a totally different turn. If you ignore them or you scream back and it's combative, then it's who can yell louder. And chances are, if he's a man and he has a bigger lung capacity, he's going to be able to scream louder than you. And that's when couples get very kind of dangerous, where they could throw things at each other and it's not pretty. So first things first is you show him that you have your attention fixed directly on him. The second one is you take a non-reactive stance. So don't pace, don't walk away. You just sit calmly in your chair. I recommend not crossing your arms. Crossing your arms, by the way, body language wise, is a sign that you are uncomfortable. It's kind of like a self hug. So don't do that because it shows a discomfort. It can be misread by many people as anger, resentment, boredom. And so you don't want to do that. What I recommend is take your hands, gently put them on top of each other on your lap if you're sitting, and if you're standing, just together, but more kind of waist level, and lean forward a little, maybe even cock your head, kind of like a dog when they're kind of curious what someone's saying, like, right? And just stay calm and curious. Body language is huge. And so just stay calm. And then when they eventually ask you your thoughts, or there's a lull in the conversation where you feel like you should respond, resist. That's first. Resist. Don't respond right away. But then when you do respond, respond in a very calm tone, just above a whisper. Okay. And the first thing you're going to want to do is acknowledge their emotional struggle. So if he's screaming and screaming at the dishes, you don't talk about the dishes. Let's say he's screaming about the dishes and how dirty the house is. And obviously that's not enough to get someone legitimately mad, but there's something underneath the surface. So the first thing you're going to do is, instead of talking about the dishes, you're going to say, I could see you're very upset. And I'm sorry you're upset. That's horrible. And the role I've played in making you upset is something I apologize for, right? Or whatever. Oftentimes offering an apology that's not even a real apology, but just an acknowledgement that there's some accountability here on your role. And let's be honest, there's always some minor version of accountability that you can own up to. That often will calm things down right away. So that's the best advice on how to handle it. Is think of it as a tantrum, and then stay calm, use your body language to project calmness, and then answer in a whisper. The second thing you have to keep in mind is you have to learn to set boundaries. Now, if you haven't really set the boundary appropriately in your relationship, you can't do it in the middle of a yelling session. It has to be done when both of you are calm. So that's a discussion for another time. But if you have set the boundary that you won't tolerate yelling, you can leave. Calmly as you can, leave. Hopefully there's no threat of violence. And then you can even send him a text message saying, we've already talked about this. I'm not going to stand for being yelled at. I love you. Very important to put that in there. And when you're ready to be calm, please let me know. And then you check in about 20 minutes if he hasn't responded. That's really the best way to do that, but you have to establish that prior. Do not do it in the middle of a fight for the first time. You will go nuts and it will fail. And then the next thing is to create a safe space for communication when you are calm. This shouldn't be a normal occurrence. So after things calm down, talk about how you need to create a space where there is no yelling, set those boundaries, and make a schedule for when you guys can check in with each other. I hope that you found this useful. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. On the screen now are 2 videos of mine that will probably help you get an even better relationship than the one you have now. And in addition to this advice, hope one of those is what you're looking for. I'm Dr. Jon Dabach, and I will see you next time.